Good evening, Conversation 1. This is week 11. Here we are, chapter 10 in the textbook, which is the last chapter in the book. Some students have really insisted on submitting assignments, even though I only asked you to do the first 6, which is fine. But I've told people over and over again, I will let you know when you need to submit an assignment, and you didn't need to for the last 3 weeks. But listen carefully right now. Next week, I want you to submit an assignment, okay? Again, it's not going to be graded. This is just the last one, same as the first 6. So today's topic will be what I want you to write about. Same format. All of you have received feedback. I've gone through everybody's email and checked every assignment, so you know what you need to work on. So I hope to see some improvements. You're not going to have perfect answers all the time. I understand that, but you want to generally improve your ability to prepare the answers for interviews and for conversation, right? One of the main things is to be confident. So if you have continued to write responses to each topic that I've taught, then that's great. I've barely been able to keep up to you with the volume of things coming in. If you look on the website or you look on the channel, you can see we're over 50 videos now. It's something like over 40 hours of lecturing. If you wander around and watch other people's classes, be careful, because some of the videos are not labeled yet, so you have to listen carefully. And actually there was one student that listened in on another video where it was a composition 1 video, and I accidentally said conversation 1, which I didn't even realize until I checked. So the safest thing to do is to just click on the link from the website and do it through the CNU portal every time. Even if you've got the credit already for the 1 hour that registers your attendance, just use the website, and all the links should be live and they should be connected to the right video. I have gotten behind with all my, I was for a while doing some graphics, thumbnails and titles and stuff. I will fix that. But part of the reason I couldn't was because I was doing grading and trying to keep the video lectures coming out, and the makeup lectures on the weekends have prevented that. I'm making lots of excuses, but I also have 2 kids running around, and we're hesitating putting them back in school because the Itaewon cluster just started a few days ago, not weeks ago, last week, and everybody's concerned about that. So be careful, everyone, all right? Before we start this, please be responsible. I know when I was 20, I wanted to go to the club, and I wanted to meet my friends, and I wanted to drink, and I wanted to meet guys and girls and have a good time. You can. What I'm trying to say is you can, but a group of 1,000 people is incredibly dangerous right now. So if you're going to hang out with some people, just make it a small group, and wash your hands, wear a mask when you're outside, spray yourselves, try to minimize contact. And if you, of course, we're human beings, we want to socialize, so go and hang out with your friends, but please don't go to Seoul and go to a place where there's 1,000 people who have met another 1,000 people. You're basically exposing yourself to thousands of people if you do that. So I think that's a bad idea. It's your choice, but we're all going to suffer if people are doing that kind of behavior. So just be responsible and be careful. Everybody's going outside, everybody's trying to be active and get back to normal, but we do have to be very cautious. So that's my speech. I do need to emphasize to you that this assignment is the last one. There will be a presentation which I will talk about next week, and there'll be a write-up with specific instructions about that, so don't worry about the presentation yet. That will be due at the end of May. It's now May 11th. Tomorrow will be May 12th, which is your class day, Tuesday. But that presentation will be due at the end of May, and that will be worth 20% of your grade, or 25%. I have to rebalance a little bit for each class, but I will give you specific instructions on that later. What I'm going to ask you to do is to record yourself with one of your devices like this, but I'll explain to you exactly what I want you to do, and you will have to submit that later. So this is just like before, just like the first 6. Today the topic is giving back. The title of the chapter is an expression, how can we help? When you go into a store, in North America at least, in most places where you have English speakers working in the service or sales industry, they say, how can I help you? But that's more of a business transaction. When you say, how can we help, it means you're offering, right? You're offering something that's it's not related to guidance in order to purchase something, in order to get some money, or in order to make some sort of contract. How can we help is just if you see something that looks like there's a problem, that you're willing to do something to improve the situation, participate somehow. So what I've done here is just made a list of people. In the textbook, it does talk about right away. It makes a list of people that might need help. So on page 114, you see there's pictures of people, and you have to identify who they are. The words are disabled, elderly, homeless, orphaned, earthquake, flood, hungry, and poor. And you have to match what you see in the scene. But I've made my own list here, just because I was just sort of focusing on individuals, not on situations. So disaster relief, of course, is a very, very important thing. When things happen out of our control, when nature causes damage, or humans cause damage, sometimes it's our fault that a disaster occurs. For example, a nuclear meltdown or an explosion of some sort. When those things happen, often the international community, governments and organizations and individuals support the relief, the disaster relief, by offering their ability, their skill, their talents, their equipment, and money. But for this topic, I would like to just narrow it, keep it away from the donation thing, because my experience is speaking with a lot of people, especially in Korea. Young people aren't as into donations as in general as older people are, mostly because we don't have as much money. That's not a Korean thing. That's when I was young, I didn't have any money to donate either. But as you get older, you think about donating. But I find a lot of Koreans hesitate to make donations because they're concerned that the money that they give isn't used effectively, and that there's some sort of corruption or some sort of scam, or just that most of the money gets used up in the administrative operation of the organization, and very little of what they give actually makes it to the situation which has a serious emergency, which is the purpose why they give it. So they feel like, well, if I donate Chunwon, well, you donate more than that, Shimanwon, and only Imanwon out of that amount ends up building a house for somebody in a country where there was a natural disaster, then it where's all that other money going in it? Am I really offering it? Am I being taken advantage of? And is my money really going to where I want it to go? And so we'll just stay away from that, right? So let's not talk about money. One, because you're all students and you don't have that much money to donate. If you do, good for you. But most of us don't, and I didn't, certainly. I was usually in the negative. I was borrowing money. from the bank, so there wasn't much there to give to other people. And secondly, because some people are concerned about the honesty and the transparency and trust in those charitable organizations. So let's just focus on what you can do to help people, which is what we call volunteering. And if you're in one of the other classes, I apologize, because I believe Conversation 3 had this similar topic, but this is essentially the same idea, is that if you're in university, the way that you can help other people is by doing stuff. You're young, you're intelligent, hopefully you have good manners, and you have a moral responsibility and a conscience, and you have more free time, honestly. You probably think you don't, but think back to high school when you were preparing for the Sunun, or if you're from another country, you were preparing for the high school examination test. No free time to do anything. You barely had time to talk to your friends. You're probably sleeping on your desk and playing with your phone in between. Once you get to university, usually you have these gaps in your schedule sometimes. So when it comes to midterms and exams, you have to lock down and you don't have any free time. But at the beginning of the semester and then here and there, we don't have too many assignments, your schedule's kind of flexible. You can do some volunteering. When you get a job, depending on how hard your job is and what your schedule is like, you probably, and you have a family, I know how this is, you end up volunteering yourself to your family as much as possible. And it's pretty tough to spend any time volunteering outside your family when you have little kids. As my kids get older, I can probably bring them with me and we can volunteer together, but you'll see what I mean. So right now is a good time to help other people. So who are the people that are in need? People in need have some sort of disadvantage. We'll just call it that, right? I want to be as politically correct as possible. Sometimes it's a mental disadvantage, or sometimes it's a physical one, sometimes it's a financial one, sometimes it's psychological. There's all kinds of different ways that a person can have trouble in their daily life, right? So I have a whole list here. One of the obvious ones is if somebody's poor, and there's all kinds of things you can do to help a poor person. One of them is to give them money directly, but again, we're going to not include that. But if you are working to help poor people, one of the things in I never actually did this, but in the university city, the city of where my university is, Hamilton, Ontario, downtown there was a soup kitchen, and basically it was a bunch of volunteers, and they were funded by donations, and yeah, they made soup. They had a truck, just like a food truck. You all know what that is. They had a food truck, and they made these big, huge pots of soup, and it was free. So all the people that were out of work or living on the street, homeless, or perhaps mentally ill, or yeah, just hungry and short money, it didn't really matter. It was just parked downtown. Every few days it was there, and they would serve soup, right? And when you put money into something like that, I think it's better than, if you see somebody begging and they're obviously not healthy. Number two, if you see somebody who's sick, you don't really know the reason why they're sick. And sometimes if you just throw money down there, they could be addicted to something, which means they might be into drugs or alcohol or gambling. So as soon as you give them money, they're going to take that money and they're going to put it back into the thing that's causing them to be there, right? To have the problem. So, some of my friends and some people in my family too, I used to throw money to people. And, when people are busking and stuff, they're musicians and stuff, that's not charity though. That's not giving back to the community. That's just like, wow, you're really talented. You should probably be making money and making albums or something, and you got a costume on, so here's $1. That's just entertainment. But if you're going to try and help somebody by giving them some money, the danger is that they might use the money for something that's counterproductive and it's not good for them. So, you know, there's lots of stories of people, you know, who have enough money to do this kind of thing, you know, getting a homeless person, you know, some new clothes. Rather than giving them $100 and say, here, you know, clean yourself up, they actually say, okay, come with me, let me buy you some new clothes, change their clothes, give them a haircut, pay for it, and then off they go. Try to get them back into, you know, try to help them get back into some sort of normal life or a routine that makes them feel better, rather than just throwing money down there and hoping that they do something good with it. A soup kitchen is like that too. If the person's sick or the person is addicted to something, they might not be eating properly, and giving them food rather than money is a good solution. So if you, there were students, there were middle-aged people, and there were people, older people, there was all kinds of adults that helped, you know, drive the truck, prepare the soup, feed the people, you know, and give them, you know, comfort by conversation and stuff when they came to the soup kitchen. And that's just a, you know, sometimes that's a government project, and sometimes that's a charitable organization, or maybe it's just a private thing where a certain organization or a certain person pays for it. And this is the kind of stuff that I want you to write about. Now, one of the concerns, obviously, you're mostly freshmen. You might not have had a chance to do any of these things. So you sort of have to brainstorm, and you might have to say, instead of saying, I did this, you might have to say, if you can make a plan, you can say, I will. Next year, or when I have a chance, I will do this. Or if I was going to participate in a charity or do some charitable work, I would like to help orphans, you know, and then explain to me why you want to help children that don't have parents, and what that would mean to you, and how you would approach it, and what do you think the value of it is. It can be international or domestic, it doesn't matter, but I think for you, probably a more practical example is better. If you want to expand your horizons and talk about United Nations, or doing Habitat for Humanity in Africa, or, you know, helping people get water access in villages that don't have water, that's all those things are possibilities. But you have a lot of choices here. You have a lot of different organizations, so I would like you to think about it. If you don't have an example where you, and remember, high school charity hours that are required, where you stand in the subway and watch people go through the gates into the subway, that's high school volunteer hours. Those are required, and that doesn't count, okay? You were forced to do that. This has to be something that you want to do because you want to give back, not because the school told you that you have to do it, okay? Or that your teacher told you. It's required for you to graduate. So you have to choose. What I suggest is you choose a type of person. Or, I almost forgot to include animals as well. I've had students do presentations on animal abuse and animal rights and rescue animals and animal shelters. That's totally fine too, if that's the way you want to, you know, help. If you want to help pets, animals, rather than a certain type of person, that's okay too. But I've got a whole list here. Refugees mean people who have fled other countries because there's violence or civil disorder or political unrest or any number of things that they've had to leave their home, and they end up in your country, in your neighborhood. That's a person, family, individual, group that always needs help. Orphans without parents, addicts, they can't control themselves, so they're basically destroying their lifestyle and their schedule, and they can't hold down a job, and they lose their friends and their family because all they can focus on is a certain substance or a certain behavior. Somebody who's abused, they come from an environment where they were treated badly, whether it was at work or it was their family or it was their marriage or who knows. These people all could use help. Mentally ill people. Most of the time we try to take care of these people in certain institutions, and they have doctors and they have helpers, but in certain cases they're underfunded or they're not taken care of properly, and they end up just wandering around without anybody to give them any assistance. So, that's also an option. There's lots of groups that try and help people that are not necessarily mentally ill, but they can be mentally challenged, like they have difficulty doing certain tasks or processing, or they have emotional issues, and it's very rewarding to help those kind of people. I've done it before. And of course, disabled people with physical disabilities, mental disabilities with physical, they need to use wheelchairs, or they can only walk slowly, or they need help, eating or moving or shopping, and you can help any of these people. If you're a young, healthy person and you have time, some time to spare, it's a worthwhile cause, and you could make somebody else's life a lot better if you chose to invest your time and effort in helping them. So, of course, yes, as people get older, older people tend to, feel bad sometimes because they start to slow down, and they have less friends and less exposure, and they can't do as many things, and it's amazing. I've spent time in nursing homes before to cheer people up, and it just changes their entire attitude. Just seeing, especially kids. I mean, if they saw me, they'd be like, another a busy middle-aged guy. That's great. But if you're younger than me, a 20-year-old guy or girl who was interested and played checkers with them, or just watched TV or listened to their stories, or help them around, they would love that. And if you were 10 years old, if you're in elementary school, they would love that even more. It's usually, in Canada at least, the elderly people, when the little kids come around, they just brighten up. They might all just be like, sort of looking like they're about to give up, and then you bring in a group of, happy, energetic, cute little kids, and they just change. Their entire demeanor changes, and they regain their interest in life. It's a fantastic thing to see. So that's what I would like you to do for your last assignment. That brings us to the end of the chapter. There's all sorts of information about charities and things you can do here. I've got a list here. There's information in the textbook. Choose something. If you don't have an example, most of you probably don't, then make a plan. Or think of a possibility and explain that to me. And that's due next week. So if I get my dates right, somebody's going to email me and tell me I made said the wrong date. But it's the 12th tomorrow in 3 minutes. So I'm going to say it's the 19th. I think that's right. So it's due on the 19th. That's your last assignment. It's a homework assignment. It's not graded. And after you hand that in, I'm going to give you the instructions for you to hand in your presentation, and after that we have the exam. So we've made a lot of progress. There's not much longer to go, just another 3 weeks until the end of the semester. So thank you again for listening. I apologize for the errors. Sometimes things do not get uploaded properly, and sometimes I write down something, but please use your judgment. I know you're all intelligent. Try and figure it out, and if there's something that's really out of place, of course, email me. But otherwise, I think you can probably predict what I'm actually trying to go for from now on, because it's pretty simplistic. One more assignment, a presentation, and the exam. So from now on, there's no more textbook. The next few lectures, I will be using my own material, and I really look forward to that because, it'll be mostly related to how to do presentations, and those lectures tend to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more fun when I don't have to follow the format of the textbook. Okay, that's it for Tuesday's class, week 11. Please do your assignment for next week, and have a good night.